All right, so to make our piece today, we're going to be using quite a few different parts. I'm going to be starting with some super duos, and I have these in 2 different colors. I will also be using some 22 gauge craft wire, and I have some chain, and that is our CH859. Everybody always asks me, well, what chain did you use? So that's what I'm using today. I also have this beautiful big pendant. This is Wenge wood, and it's really unique, so I thought this would be a perfect tutorial to show you using this. I also have a piece of Tier Cast, one of their charms, and one of their hammered rings, and I have one of their wavy discs. I also have one of these big juicy check glass pieces. These are about like a 14 millimeter. They're so cool. I also have one teeny tiny 4 millimeter fire polish. And I'm going to be using a head pin, a lobster clasp, some assorted jump rings, and some of our bead tips. I'm also going to be using a couple meters of 3-ply Irish wax linen. And for tools, I'll be using a pair of cutters and some bent chain nose, my chain nose pliers, my round nose pliers, and I'm going to show you kind of an easy way to use knots, or to make knots, if you use a pair of tweezers, because these knots are pretty easy to make, but if you struggle, you can always use a pair of tweezers. So let's get started. So this is going to be available in kit form, and if you do buy a kit, you're going to get 2 meters of Irish wax linen, but it's going to come in one long length. So you're going to have to cut that in half. So I'm going to take the 2 ends and I'm going to marry them up, and I'm going to try to find that middle, and I'm going to be mindful that I don't put any knots in it as I'm doing that. And then I'm just going to cut that in half. And you know, again, if you've watched me for years, you'll know that I never have scissors around. Scissors would make this a whole lot easier, but you know, whenever I go to film, I forget about them. So I cut that in half, and I'm just going to put one to the side for now. All right, so now we've got one piece of our Irish wax linen, and that's about 1 meter. And for anybody that doesn't know what 1 meter is, it's just over a yard. So we're now going to take that and we're going to cut that piece in half. So now you're going to have 2 pieces that are basically like a 1/2 meter. So hopefully that makes sense. We cut the one big long one in half, and then we're going to cut our individual pieces in half. So now I'm going to take one of my rings here, and I just want to make sure that I'm doing this in the same method, because you're going to be doing this twice. So you want to sort of repeat what you're doing the first time, the second time. Hopefully that made sense. So I'm going to do a lark's head knot, but instead of going up, I'm going to go down so that I remember on the second one that I do that I go down, so they're both in the same direction. So you take your little loop, and I kind of open it up, and then I'm going to put it through there, and I'm going to just take that and pull it through. And so now when I tighten that up, you're going to see that you've got your little knot on the top, and that's what we want for our second one, and I'll show you what I'm going to do. So now I've got what looks like 4 pieces of Irish wax linen coming off of this. So I just take my thumbnail and kind of push that down nice and tight. So now we're going to open up our super duos. I'm so sorry if I'm all over the place today. It's been a very long time since I have done any tutorials, because I've just been too busy. And I figured it's high time that I do one, but I feel very rusty. So I apologize for not being sort of, on my best game here. All right, so one of the things when you get this, we're going to give you a few extra super duos, because super duos are notorious for being sort of clogged up. So one of the things that this comes in handy for is if you find one that's kind of got like a little bit of excess paint on it, or the coating, you can just take them and kind of poke through there. You just don't want to do it too hard, because it can crack. All right, so now the other thing that I do find a little bit easier, and this is where scissors would come in handy, is it does help if you take the ends and you kind of cut them so they're not blunt. So I'm kind of cutting them on a bit of an angle there. So I did those 2. And it doesn't matter if they're all exactly the same length, because we're going to give you enough that you'll have a little bit left over. So I'm just going to get rid of that. So now I've got 4 little pieces here. All right, so now this is really super easy. I just hope that it comes across as easy as it is. So you're going to have 4 pieces here, essentially. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find what looks like the top 2 pieces, and I'm going to call those 2 my top. It doesn't really matter, but I just find that it kind of sits nicer if I sort of pick a top and a bottom. So you can see I've got 2 on the bottom, and 2 on the top. So I'm going to take those first ones on the top, and I'm going to pick my first color. And now my first color is going to be one of these sort of pumpkin colors. So now what I do is I take my ends and I kind of just make them nice and pointy like a needle. And I'm going to put my Irish wax linen through one side and through the other. And then I'm going to pull that down. And make sure that you pull it at the same time, not like I just did. So, and it doesn't really matter where that sits, just get it down there. Now we're going to make sure that these aren't crossed over. We're going to keep those kind of separated. And I'm going to put another pumpkin colored one on. We're kind of going with a bit of a fall theme here today. So I've got, you know, if it doesn't go through, you kind of just have to make it. And then we're going to put the other side through. And these do, you know, it gets kind of blunted out a little bit, so you have to make it into a bit of a needle. And this is a lot easier than I'm making it look. I came into the warehouse today and the heat had been on all weekend and it is roasting in here, so I'm sweating. All right, so now I've got those two. So now what I need to do is I need to split these, but going the opposite way. So I've got my 2 pieces coming out of here and 2 pieces coming out of here. Now what I need to do is take the 2 from one side, and then I'm going to go 2 on the other side. So it doesn't matter again which way they go. I'm just doing sort of opposite, and this will make sense in a second. So now I'm going to just kind of make sure those are like a bit of a needle, and now I'm going to pick my other color. So this is kind of a, I think they call this a pearl shine autumn leaf. It's a really pretty sort of purpley, pinky, mauvey kind of color. So I'm going to put those on there. And again, I'm not really too concerned about where these land, and I will show you why when we get the last 2 on. So now I'm going to take the other side and I'm going to put those through. And so now those are going to sit like that. So now we're kind of creating like a little cluster. So now again, we have to split these. So I'm going to take this top one here and this top one. So they're just coming out of the holes. So it's not really top or bottom. I'm just kind of calling it top or bottom, but I need to split that again. So you're going to kind of be doing opposite on each side. So now I'm going to go back to my sort of pumpkin color. I'm going to make those kind of sharp again. And so far we've got lucky with our Super Duos not having any little clogged holes. But I don't know what it is about Super Duos, because these are, you know, really good quality ones. But they just sometimes have little things like that that can be challenging. All right, I'm going to get this last one through there. So we're making little clusters of 2, 4, 6. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm pushing those all down. So now you can see when I start to push them all down, I'm going to have like a little cluster of beads. So again, you just kind of work it down. So you can see that I've got the pumpkin and the pumpkin, and then going the opposite direction, I've got this sort of pinky mauve colors, and then going back to the same direction, I've got the pumpkin and the pumpkin. So it creates this nice little nest of beads, which is really kind of fun. And I'm not a big seed beater, but when I figured this out, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So now I want to create a knot. So what I do is I just take my pieces of Irish wax linen and I just kind of make a knot over my fingers. And now I am very mindful of where this knot goes, because Irish wax linen, it's got a lot of, it's waxed, of course. So it's got a lot of grip, and you can make a knot in the wrong place, which is not good. But I find if I just kind of take my time, I can push it down there. Now, before I do that, I'm going to show you what other kind of things you can do here. So I'm just going to see if I can get this open. But one of the things I like to do to make sure that I don't have any knots going where they shouldn't is I again will do the same thing. So I'm just going to go around my fingers, pull all 4 of those through. I take my tweezers and I place them right where I want that knot, and I want that knot to be right there. And then I just pull up. And you can see it just goes where I want. I'm going to pull that out, and then I just take my fingernail or my thumbnail and just kind of push down. So now I've created like a little nest. So that's super, super easy. Now, what we're going to do is open these back up again. We're going to try and find some tops and bottoms. And what I mean by that, I know that can get kind of confusing. Sometimes people don't see that. They're like, well, there is no top and there is no bottom. Those are just words I'm using. But what we're wanting to do is not have anything kind of crossing over. So I'm going to pick these two. I'm going to see if I can get up there nice and close. These two are going to be sort of my top, and these two are going to be my bottom. Now, if I decided to do, let's say, this, and then have this one down there, you can just, I mean, it still would work. It just doesn't look kind of right to me. I just feel like you'll know when it's the right one. But if it doesn't, don't worry about it. It doesn't make a really big difference, but you just don't want to have any obvious crossing over. Okay, so now I'm going to actually reverse the colors. So instead of starting with the pumpkin, I'm going to start with the pink. So I'll start with my pink. And sometimes you might have to cut the ends again, but I'm just going to try and make them into little points. If you do any trimming, do very minor trimming, because we give you kind of just enough. We don't want to be wasteful, so we don't have a ton of excess. So just only cut off the tips if you have to do any trimming. So I'm going to put on the pink and a pink. Try to get that one through first. Sweaty hands and sticky Irish wax linen is not a great combination. So now you can also twirl this around, but you want to make sure you're going in the right direction. If you go in the wrong direction, it's just going to open up. So then you can just twist it back the other way. So now this is just so easy, and the effect is really kind of cool when it's done. So hopefully you really enjoy this kind of a thing. All right. All right, so I've got my two on there. So now I'm going to take the opposite one. So I'm going to go the top there and the top there. And I just find if you sort of separate them, I'm just sort of over exaggerating for the camera so that you know exactly what I'm doing. Now I'm going to make those into points again, and I'm going to put my pumpkin ones on. And then on the other side, I'm going to do the same thing. And you get into a little bit of a rhythm. And it's, I find it hard to do this kind of stuff under a camera, where when I created this at my desk the other day, I kind of whipped it together in no time flat. So, you know, this is actually, it goes together fairly quickly. Try to get that back in there. I would say the hardest part of the necklace is this part. All right, so I have my two pumpkins on there, and you can see that they're going opposite directions to the first two pink ones. So now I'm going to split these again. So that one's going to go up there, and that one's going to go up there, and then those two are going to go that way. And again, it doesn't matter if I turn this around. I'm splitting them so that they go where I want them to go. So now we're going to go back to our pink. So, and we do give you a little bit less of the pink. So you're going to want to stick with the pattern that I have sort of picked here. Otherwise, you're not going to have enough. So you're going to do some opposites. And I'll go over that one more time. And then on this side, we're going to put our last pink one. Put that through there. And get that one through there. All right. I've had so many people leaving me messages and comments lately saying that they miss me on YouTube, and I really appreciate all the love and support you guys have given me over the years. It's just been a lot lately. There's been a lot going on in my life and a lot going on with the business and so many changes, and I just literally haven't had time. So I'm trying to have weekends so that I can work around my house and do some things. So I'm going to try, I'll keep trying. I'm always trying to find time, but I do appreciate everybody reaching out. All right, so now you can see I've got my little cluster. So I want to push them down so they're all nice and snug. And then I'm going to wrap it around my finger, pull that through. And again, you can use your tweezers by just going through that knot and then grabbing hold of where you want and pulling up. And honestly, when I put my sample together, I didn't use my tweezers, but I thought, well, I should have an easier way for you just in case. So I started off with 2 pumpkin and then 2 purple, pink, whatever we're going to call it, and then 2 pumpkin, and I did my knot. Then we reversed that. We went pink, pumpkin, pink. And now on the next one, I'm going to do the pumpkin, the pink. So you're just going to go back and forth, and we're going to do 5 of those in a row. So you'll have 5 little groupings like that. All right, so I'm going to just swap this out and show you one that I've already created. All right, so this is the sample that I started with. So you can see on this one here, I've already sort of finished it off. So I've got my, I've got 5 little sort of buds of my little, I don't know what we're going to call those, buds, berries, whatever we're going to call them. They're just little groups of beads, and I just think they look so cute. And it's just so much fun to do. So what I did was on the final one, I did a knot there. And then you can see that I've left just a tiny little gap, and I've done my next knot. So I'm going to just make a little knot. Now you're not going to have very much left over, so you may have to use some tweezers or something to kind of grab this last little bit through there. Just kind of pull up. And then you can use your tweezers to get it where you want, or you can see what I do. I just kind of scoosh it down with my fingers, scoosh being the technical term of the day, and kind of get it right about there. You only want to have a little tiny gap, like maybe 1/4 of an inch, and I want to have that nice and tight. So you just kind of push and pull and get that nice and tight, and then we're going to bravely go in here and cut that off. All right, so now I've got these ends like that. Now, if you are a little bit nervous about having this stay together, what I would do is I would take a little bit of GS Hypo glue, and I would put a little dot on there and a little dot on there. I don't usually have Irish wax linen come apart, but if I was selling this, I definitely would do that. So you just want to put a little dot on there and let it dry. All right, so now we're going to use these little clamshells, and these are a little different than regular clamshells that you might see in that they close sideways. So it's kind of nice. I don't have to try to get this up through a hole. All I have to do is just take it and pop it over top of that little knot. Make sure that you can see this on camera. And then I just tighten it up. And I'm going to do it with my, I don't use pliers, I just use my fingers, but I make sure everything's inside, and then you just kind of gently close it up. And you see it just covers that all up there. And Irish wax linen is super strong, so that's not going to cut through there. And you can see that I actually could have gone a little bit closer there with my knot. So maybe, you know, when you're doing yours, just go a little bit closer, and then you won't have that little bit of a gap there. So I'm going to put one on each side, and you can just close them up with your fingers. I just wanted to make sure that you could see. So that's what we've got now. So that's just kind of a nice way to end that off. But yeah, I definitely, and I can't make a bunch of these because I just don't have time. So it's better for me just to sort of make one and then explain what I would do differently next time. So what I would probably do then is I would probably make my last knot really close to this first one here, and then you won't end up with that little bit of a gap. But it's not a big deal. It's just, you know, one of those things if I'm being picky. So now I'm going to kind of figure out what is the top and the bottom. And the top to me is where the little bumps are coming over there. So I want to work with that. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to take my pliers and I'm going to open up my large jump ring. So this is the heavy gauge one. And I'm going to open that up just by doing a back and forth motion. Go through the top of that charm and then go through the top of the wenge wood. And I'm going to then close that up. And I find if you just kind of jiggle, that closes it up nicely. So now that will just kind of sit on top there and gives it just a nice little accent. Okay, then I'm going to take my wire, and we are going to give you about 5 or 6 inches or so, which is plenty. I'm going to give that a little trim, and it's probably going to come out of your kit looking like that. So I just put my pliers at the top, and then I pull down, and then just kind of straighten that out a bit. So now I'm going to go down about, I don't know, 1.5 inches or so, and I'm going to bend that away, and I am going to make a wrapped loop. So I'm going to go towards the bottom of my pliers. I don't want a super big one, but I want it big enough that it's going to go over top of that jump ring easily. So I'm going to go up and over and down and rotate and just kind of make that a nice little sort of lollipop. All right, so now it's going to go through there. I'm going to turn it over. So I've got the large, long one going to my left and the short one on the top. And now I'm going to take my pliers and put them right over top like that. And I'm going to just wrap around twice. So there's once, twice, and then I'm going to work back down the other way because I want to make kind of a bulky wrap. And I'm just going to go a couple times. Once I get to this side, I just trim it off. And then I just look to see if there's any burrs, and that's kind of sticking out. So I'm just going to use my pliers so I can show you. And that looks like it's sticking out just a little bit on the top there. So I'm just going to take my chain nose pliers and just get on top there and just push that down just so gently. All right, so I've got that. Now I'm going to put my wavy cap on, or it's like a little wavy spacer. So this has it's like double-sided. Make sure I can get that on camera. So I want to put it on so that the I don't know, is that the convex part of it? Is to the top. I'm not good with that stuff. All right, so because you want that to kind of sit inside there. So now I want to have this, I want to make sure that I've got it so that I've got one loop going this direction, and then my second loop is going to go the other direction so it can go on there. So I'm going to take my pliers and just place them at the top, and then I'm going to bend away. And I'm going to make this a little bit larger because it needs to get over that ring. So I'm going to go up and over and down, rotate, pull that to the side. And now you can see it's going to be off kilter, but I just kind of pull it up and then pull that down. And that's just how you make a nice loop like that. So I'm going to come in from the back side. I don't know why, it's just the way I do things. And pull that down and make sure it stays in there. And then I'm going to wrap that loop up. All right, so I'm going to go down a couple times till I get to that bead, and then I'm going to work my way back up a couple times just to try to make it a little bit bulkier. And then we're going to give that a little trim. And then we are going to just make sure that any little burrs are kind of tucked down. And if that makes you a little nervous, you probably don't have to worry about it. That's just my little thing. All right, so now we've got everything going the right direction. Now what I do at this point, you can see that because this is a soft metal, they're a little bit out of kilter. So what I do is I take my pliers and just make sure that everything is aligned the way that I want it to go. And, just make sure that everything looks pretty good there. Okay, so now I'm going to take my head pin and I'm going to put it through my fire polish. And I'm going to just go down to the very, very end like that. So I'm using the very tip of it, and I'm just going to bend away. And I'm going to come in with my pliers, and towards the end of my pliers, my round nose pliers, I'm going to create a small loop. Now these head pins are quite sort of husky. They're about a 20 gauge. So I don't want to do a lot of wraps. So I'm going to go through this loop that I made. I'm going to have that just dangling off the side like that. So I'm going to come in, and I'm just going to do like 2 wraps because I don't want to break my bead. So now there's going to be a lot of stuff there, so it's kind of all in the way. So I'm just going to go around once, and you can always use your pliers if that, because these are they're heavy duty, but I like the bald head pinned look. Okay, hopefully that was on camera. I was not watching, and we'll just give that a little trim. And now if you are going to tuck any burrs down, just be very mindful. Now I don't think I did a very good job on that. That one's kind of separated. But you can always fix it. So look at that. I just did that and then come in and just tuck that down gently, being very mindful that I'm not cracking that bead. Okay, so hopefully that all made sense. I'm just going to flip it around so you can see what we're working with right now. So now we've got this cute little sort of stacked look. And these necklaces always look so much better when they're actually hanging up on something. So I'll make sure to take a really good picture. So, because this looks better when it's hanging versus laying down. So we've got this happening. And now I'm going to take one of my 18 gauge jump rings for each side. I'll bring all this stuff forward. I've got my chain. So you'll get, I think this will make an 18-inch necklace, or maybe a little bit longer. You're going to get one long continuous piece of chain. So make sure that you cut your chain in half. So then I'm going to take one of my jump rings and I'm going to open that up. And I'm going to run it through the hole in the bead tips. Make sure that the holes are lined up. Sometimes they can be a little off when you put them together, and then you'll have a hard time getting your jump ring through there. So we're going to put that on one side and that on the other. And I'm going to run that through. And I really wish that I'd made those knots a little closer. It's one of those things that's going to bug me, but I cannot aim for perfection. I mean, I guess I could. If I was making this to sell, I definitely would be aiming for perfection, but it's just one of those things. All right, and I need 2 more jump rings. And you're going to put the other one's at the top. So I'm going to run that through the top of that chain, and I'm going to put one through my lobster clasp, and you want to do that up nice and tight. And then I'm going to do the other side, and I like to use a closed ring. Some people just will do this and then just put it through the chain, but I don't like that look. I don't think it looks finished. So I always use a nice large closed ring, because when you're putting on necklaces, it can be really difficult to do them up if you don't have much to work with. And you know, sometimes they don't want to do up. So there we go. I'm just going to boss it around. All right, so let me get this cleaned up and I'll show you the finished necklace. Well, there you go. There is the completed necklace. And I think this turned out really cute. And again, it's one of those things that when you hang it up, it looks a whole lot better than when I've got it on a flat surface. But it's kind of fun to do some sort of mixed things, doing some wire wrapping and then doing something with knots and with super duos and creating these little clusters and then adding your chain. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and let me know what you'd like to see from me next, because I have lots of ideas. I just have to figure out what I'm going to do next. But I do like to hear what you guys want to see from me. So, and also, if you have not subscribed to my channel, please make sure that you do so. It really does help me out a lot. I want to thank you so much for all your support, for watching this video, and for always coming back with all your lovely comments. I really do appreciate it, and we will see you on the next one.